Hey folks, we are going to be playing Late Age Rlyeh, or New Rlyeh, because we're using the all-era mod for this next huge bozmos game. So it's going to be played on this huge map. I had an announcement for it up on the channel a bit ago, and hopefully some of you were able to join. It's a 70-player game. So all the thinking in this and the preparation for this, it's going to be aimed at two things. One is it's a much bigger map, and there's a big variance in player skill level. And so on one hand, you want to be very greedy early. On the other hand, it's a game that's probably going to go very late into the game, and you will get enormous, so you need to scale well. So, and it's being played with Dominions Enhanced and with bozmos, which is like a little layer on top of that, and also some other odds and ends from other mod packs. And it's probably going to crash. So we're going to talk about the nation. Late Age Rlyeh, here's my TLDR. It is a nation that I think is perfectly viable in vanilla. It's one of the nations that gets a ton of hate in vanilla. And people think it's one of the worst nations in the game, or like very bad. It also has the comic phrase about it that it is a nation that is horrible to play against, but is also horrible to play as. So it's not just cancer for you, or for the other players, it's also cancer for you. That is what people say about it in vanilla. I find if you run low Dominion Strength, I did that series on Asphodel, and I figured out the low Dominion Strength thing for Asphodel and Rlyeh about the same time. And I tried games with both of them, and it was viable in both. So anyway, if you run low Dominion Strength in vanilla, they basically play like middle-aged Rlyeh, but they have access to Void Specters, which are really good. And they have access to Dreams of Rlyeh, which is it's a nice tool. I don't think it's awesome, but it's a nice tool. So, what is Late Age Rlyeh? It's a nation of... wait, did I finish the TLDR? Yeah, so the TLDR is that that this nation was generally considered weak in Dominions, like vanilla. And Red Rob thought it was very weak. He agreed with that consensus. He's the mod maker for Dominions Enhanced. So he did all sorts of very cool things that make it much better, much more fun to play as, and that improve it dramatically. Now, those are all very cool, and there's a lot of cool stuff he added to the nation. So in many ways, I think it's like a way cooler nation, but because it was already, in my opinion, fine in vanilla, it is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous in Dominions Enhanced. Absolutely ridiculous. A lot of the things that make it good are things that happen in the late game, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of this. So the way this is going to be structured a little bit is we're going to talk about basically what is the base nation, and then I'm going to go to Mod Inspector, and we'll talk about the Dominions Enhanced stuff, which is going to be very important. The last bozmos game where I was playing Late Age Ulm was basically the same as vanilla. This is definitely not the case. Late Age Rlyeh is heavily modded. So, anyway, upwards and onwards. The first part, again, is going to be basically for a vanilla guide to Rlyeh. And I will say that we might talk about it a little bit in Pretender Design, too, which will be the next video. But if you play in vanilla, I would highly recommend a low Dominion build. Like one, maybe two. Dominion Strength 1 or 2. Okay, so the nation. We're going to kind of do... We're going to have to talk about all these. I kind of don't want to, but we kind of a little bit have to. Okay. So we're going to start with the commanders. These commanders are interesting. So this guy's 80 leadership, which means +1 morale for troops, and you can put him in a line formation. He's very important for this role of getting your Meteorite Guard into line formation. Your Meteorite Guard, these dudes, are phenomenal units. But anyway, most of your mages and stuff you'll have will not be able to get them in lines. This is your guy for that. The next dude, this is our other commander, the Illiterate Lord. He is special. He gives Taskmaster 2, which means all your slaves which have really bad MR, which we have a lot of slaves, they're going to get 2 morale. Or they have low morale, and the 2 morale bonus is going to be real nice. It has 40 leadership. So compared to this dude, it's only +1 for leadership for a lot of your troops. combined with the fact that he cannot put things in line formation, I think he's an inferior leader to a lot of your normal troops. The kind of asterisk to that is he can mind blast, and having one guy mind blasting is actually not entirely trivial. So in some ways he pays for himself just as a mind blaster, and the fact that he's a good commander is kind of for free. So, you know, there you go. The other thing is he has Void Sanity 10, and I do not believe this guy does. So this guy will also go crazy. There are items you can make in Dominions Enhanced that will give commanders Void Sanity. There's items that other nations can make so that when they invade you, it's not so cancerous. And there's items that you can make so that your non-void, non-void sanity units will not go insane. That's another thing I probably should have mentioned at the beginning, but now is as good a time as any. Your Dominion is pop kill in late age. So it's basically middle age plus pop kill plus a few other cool spells. The reason I was saying you go low Dominion is because you highly mitigate the effects of pop kill if you only one Dominion strength. But in addition to pop kill, you're also going to cause units to go insane in your Dominion. So high Dominion equals lots of insanity, lots of pop kill. Low Dominion equals low insanity, low pop kill. Okay. This guy, though, so we've said he has Taskmaster, which can be nice. His leadership, okay. Magic leadership is important here because you're going to have a lot of magic beings. A lot of the free spawn dudes you get require magic leadership, and this guy can do that. So he can also lead 80 dudes, but it's a mix of normal and magical dudes. That, I would say, is probably the most important part about him. I end up using this guy a fair amount for expansion because you're often going to have a fair amount of Lobo Guard in your expansion, or you may choose to. You don't have to. And then we have the Slay Priest, the cheapest priest in the game, because he is both Sacred, which has upkeep, and Slave, which has upkeep on top of that. So his upkeep is ridiculously low, 9 gold a year. So very cheap priest. And yeah, otherwise pretty solid dude if you need a Holy One priest. And then we have the Star Child. Now, in Dominions Enhanced, it has lowered the cost for Star Children by removing the assassin tag. And in some ways, this is a nerf, because now all your Star Children can't be assassins. On the other hand, because it changes the auto-calc value, the gold value of the unit, it has also made it significantly cheaper. I think it was 85 or something in vanilla, reduced to 60. And most of the time, like 90% of turns, these guys are not being assassins. So I think this is actually a major buff for the nation. They're still stealthy. They still have Void Sanity. And they still are going to be okay researching in Magic 3. So what does all that mean? It means it's kind of a pretty big buff for late age Rlyeh. Now there's a spell they can cast, which costs I think 2 or 3 or 4 pearls, which will turn them into an assassin, gives them the assassin ability. So, you know, if you're willing to fork up the dough, these guys can still be assassins. Which, in some ways, it's nerfing one of the hallmarks and one of the most I mean, honestly, I think, like, if Illwinter, okay, guys, I'm super biased towards vanilla most of the time. Like, if Illwinter makes a mistake, I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. If a modern makes a mistake, I'm like, God, why did we leave vanilla? So I think this actually is a pretty cool way to handle Star Children, because Star Children are super cancer. But with improved casting AI mod on, it is much easier to deal with assassins, and it's actually much harder to have efficient assassins with that mod on. So I don't actually think we're playing with that mod, but anyway. Most of my games we do. Anyway, that's the Star Child. Basically, great Communion Slave. Also can Mind Blast. Decent Communion Master as well. I mean, just an all-around phenomenal unit. And one of my favorite combos in the game is Stealthy Astral. I love it, I love it, I love it. I love Astral Magic as a path. And being able to be Stealthy Astral means you're essentially going to be immune to Mind Hunt. And not just this guy, but like your whole nation. Okay, that's a Star Child. Then we have the Slave Mage. This guy's very interesting. For late age Rlyeh, he's going to go batshit crazy reasonably quickly, depending on your Dominion strength. And they are going to go crazy kind of fast. Like, if you're playing vanilla and you have 1 Dom strength, you're fine. We're going to be playing low Dom, but not no Dom. And the difference between Dominion 1 and Dominion 3 is 3 times the insanity. So even at Dominion 3, these guys are going to go crazy pretty quick. At Dominion 8 or 9, these guys go crazy super fast. And you're only going to want to recruit them on the edges of your territory. And then they're not going to be useful terribly long. You want to shuffle them off to war. That being said, if you go low Dominion, like 1 Dominion strength, you can use these guys as your like research core. And they have phenomenal research, and they don't... Well, basically, this slave tag is awesome for them. It's going to reduce their morale, which is fine most of the time until late game. But yeah, it's going to reduce their morale. I don't think it's going to make them cost more, but it cuts their upkeep in half as if they were a sacred unit. So this is a phenomenal research mage. In addition, it comes in 4 varieties, a water 3, an astral 2, and then one with the earth and the nature cross path. These are very important. Earth, astral, one of the best cross paths in the game. Water nature, one of the best cross paths in the game. And, astral, astral nature has a few interesting things too, like moonvine bracelets and stuff. And of course, importantly, you can throw all these into your communion and have arbitrarily high level magic paths for casting any sorts of spells. So slave mage, Magusta. Next up, we have the Star Spawn. This is a recruit anywhere mage. Holy 2, Astral 1 means they can jump in communions. These guys can do epic banishment communions if you're fighting stuff that needs it, or smite communions early if you're getting rushed. Very solid. They come in basically the same varieties, except instead of the nature, they have a death. And this is important because you only need death 1 to do like dark knowledge, to site search all your lands for deep death. And it's part of, it's an astral death mage, means now we can do arbitrarily large death things in communions like life after death and darkness and rigor mortis and whatever you feel like. Very, very good mage. Additionally, it is a void summoner. So it can enter the void gate and try to summon things from it, and most probably die a horrible death, but occasionally get you a really cool unit. The details, though, of how that works is actually pretty complicated. If you Google it, there's a long guide on how it works. The TLDR of void summoning, though, is every time you try, you get +1 summoning skill. And every time you try, there's a very good chance you die. And as your summoning skill goes up, you get better and better creatures, potentially. And then you actually reach a max where you kind of get worse creatures, and then it's kind of better to start with a new dude. But the creatures you get aren't bad, they're just not as good. Anyway, long story short, as your skill goes up, you're more likely to get good stuff. But you're more likely in reality to die before your skill gets really high, unless you're doing bodyguard stuff. So, anyway, Star Spawn. And then we have the cap-only mage, also called the Star Spawn, which is kind of cool because, like, when you're looking at an enemy stack of squids, you don't know what kind of Star Spawn is there. Is it the cap-only one? Is it the non-cap-only one? You don't know. But yeah, they are Astral 3, Water 1, and in vanilla, they are not Holy 3. They're not even Sacred. In vanilla, they get this thing, the Water, Earth, Astral Death. They get this twice. So the change in D is you only get it once, which is kind of significant because it means it's actually harder to break into death, because if you did this enough, you would get death randoms, like death 2s, and you'd get Earth 2s, and you would get like Astral 5s. So you would get some kind of cool double rolls in vanilla. In Dominion's Enhanced, they are Holy 3, so they're lower upkeep, but they're Insane 10, which means they're going to do crazy shit. They're also good summoners, but whether you want to waste one on basically doing void summoning, that's up to you. I can't say I would necessarily recommend it. They get Chaos Recruitment, so they're a bit cheaper to get in Turmoil, but anyway. They're good. The idea, I think, was supposed to make like a Bless more attractive on the nation, which I think it does. Like, it made me think about it, and you would normally have to put like Robes of the Magi on Sacred Shrouds on these guys to get them blessed if you had like a pin bonus. Now you don't have to do that, I don't think. Anyway, They're cool. I've played a game with them, as I mentioned before, in vanilla, and these guys can thug. They can thug pretty hard, actually. Like, they can wipe small armies. And a lot of it actually is stuff that I haven't seen other people do before, but they're a Power of the Spheres thug. What do I mean by that? I mean, you do Power of the Spheres, and you can put gems on them, or you can do I forget what you call it, the Clam of Pearls or whatever. But with that, they become Death 2, and Death 2, with the Death Gem, you can do Soul Vortex. And then plus doing Astral Shield and some other things, you know, Quicken Self with Life Drain, and a shield and good armor. These guys can actually be very difficult to kill. So they're pretty cool. I dig. You especially like the water randoms, you can put a bracelet on them, you can teleport them in places and have them do water elementals. In Dominions Enhanced, it's not as cool because you can magic phase with water for some reason. Dominions Enhanced, I don't like that really, but it's a thing you can do. The other thing about these guys is in Dominions Enhanced, not in Vanilla, they can summon void creatures from a temple. So that's an important thing, but only one per province. Okay. Hybrid. Okay, so this is what you get in Coasts. In the Coasts, I don't think these guys are assassins, the ones you get in the Coast. I think it's the normal ones, but it may be the assassin variety. I don't think so. Well, we can find out. I actually have a test game, but you get these hybrid commanders, which are fine. They lead these dudes, these little guys who have armor-piercing tentacles. They're pretty bad, but if you get a strength buff on them, they're okay. And they have pretty high attack density, so like versus elves and thugs and stuff, they're okay. They're not bad. You'll get some of these as free spawn, though, and these guys can lead them. Or these guys can lead them. So, but they have a Mind Blast. I don't know. They're fine. I mean, honestly, it's like the same amount of gold you pay for one of your Mind Blasters, but he's a commander. So he's fine. You also get Void Cultists, which in Vanilla suck. In Dominions Enhanced, they're better. So they're all insane, and they get more insane the longer they're in your Dominion. But they can also train beasties at temples, just like your cap-only mages. But you can only get them in land, so you do have an incentive to get a land holding, make some of these guys, and put them in all of your forts with temples. Probably like 2 of them, so that if one is, you know, busy looking at the stars or scribbling, you know, strange signs in the sand, somebody else can pick up their job at the temple and bring creatures from the void into the world. So, yeah. They're kind of cool. They're stealthy. A few of these guys will be astral. You're also going to get free spawn. They're a little bit like a Lobo Guard. You're going to get free spawn little priests that are going to also be insane, and they sometimes will have a random astral path. Yeah. So we'll talk about the troops. We got the Lobo Guard, and the Lobo Guard are pretty remarkable. They are, in terms of like gold per hit points, they're very efficient. They also are amphibious, which is nice. They have Dark Vision 100, which is nice. They are mindless, which actually is pretty darn nice. And they have perfect morale, which is also very nice. What they do not do is defend themselves well. They have no protection, they have no defense to speak of. And their attack skill is not very great, and they don't do much damage. But they have high strength, relatively, so they make excellent siege chaff. They're never going to run. And, yeah, they do what they do pretty well, which is basically just be a meat wall. It even says it right here. Now they serve as perfectly loyal guards and arrow fodder. There you go. Straight from Illwinter. Now we have a host, an absolute host of units we can recruit. And there's a few categories. We have basically these Atlanteans, and that you can see there's 4 of them. First one is the Slave Trooper, and 18 damage. They're all slaves, so we're not going to talk about the common stuff. 10 attack, so 12 hit points, 10 attack, 10 defense, and an 18 damage thing. Next up is the Slave Guardian. 9 gold. This guy's 9 gold also, and I think they both have 7 morale. Basically the same. His deal is he has armor, right? So he's protection 12 versus protection 2. Otherwise the same. And then we have another version of the Slave Guardian, which does not have the hat. So it's a little cheaper on resources. It's 10 versus 11. And I think that's the only difference. These guys are all okay. They are pretty killy, because this Link 3, 18 damage, piercing damage weapon. And especially the guys with armor, they have enough protection, they're not going to die immediately. But they run really, are very likely to run. So you really want to get like a morale bonus on them so they don't immediately turncoat in combat. And then the pinnacle, and honestly this is one of the best true recruitable troops in the game, is the Meteorite Guard. And he is of the Atlantean variety, but instead of having crappy armor, he has very high quality armor. Meteorite armor. And it's magical armor, which means it's less likely to break, which normally doesn't matter, but he has high encumbrance. That's one of his sins. But he also has a Link 3 high damage two-handed Meteorite Trident. And he also has dark vision like the other dudes. But this makes him pretty special. He's also a slave for reduced upkeep. And he's amphibious. Now, these are all exceptional tags. And the reason is because you're going to be able to put up darkness. In darkness, these guys are monsters. And if the enemy doesn't have dark vision, forget about it. Fog warriors, these guys don't care about. Thugs, these guys are going to ruin. These guys are very difficult to deal with. They have pretty good hit points and protection. Means things like Murdering Winter and Flamestorm in the Sky are not going to be super efficient against them. They're just a good unit. They're super duper good. They're one of my favorite units in the game. They cost a ton of resources though, but they're pretty cheap gold-wise. They have the upkeep of like a 7 gold unit. Think about that. These guys are like very good. They're also slow. That's another one of their sins, but these sins can be forgiven. So that's the Meteorite Guard. Love them, make a ton of them. So that's the Atlantean line of troops. We then get basically the Merfolk, and they come in a few varieties. This guy, the Slave Trooper with a net, I could see situations where this guy would be good. What I have found is they tend to die and to run. And what they tend to not do is cover things in nets and kill them, which is what you hope they would do. But theory crafting, when I tried expansion with these guys, it does not work very well. But theory crafting wise, you could imagine blasting people with mind blasters, and then a trickle of units come in, and that trickle runs into a pile of these guys with nets, and then they kill them. What I have found happens instead is 10 guys finally get to the front line, and they're going to kill 20 of your slave troopers, and then, or they'll kill 4 of your slave troopers, and the other 15 run. Then we have this guy who's basically the same, but he has a higher damage spear. And we have this guy who's the same, but he's got the high damage spear and a bit of armor. And notice 10 strength, 10 attack, 9 defense. And then they have this guy who has the same thing, but a significantly higher damage weapon, the Bone Trident, and 11 attack. And compared to well, look at the net dude. It's 10 attack and 12 damage. This guy is so much better in terms of killing stuff. It's kind of remarkable. I have found these guys actually are pretty darn good. They'll still get scared and run sometimes. They have the same bad morale, but they have enough protection. Morale, whether you rout or not in combat, isn't only having to do with your morale. It also has to do with how much damage you're taking and how long you have to stay in combat. So because these guys are killy, and because they have enough protection they don't immediately start melting, they actually don't run nearly as much. So Slave Guardians, I like. These are definitely an expansion option. We've talked all the Atlantean stuff. You get the Shambler, which is a size 3 trampler. They're very cheap in terms of resources. So if you need to just you can use these guys for expansion. All tramplers rely on a critical mass usually and are not getting surrounded, which they tend to do. So if you have enough tramplers in a group, as they run in, they tend to, if they were alone, they would die. But if there's enough of them, they're not really surrounded. They're all mixed in with the stuff. But that's expensive a lot of times. It's possible, and I still need to test expansion a little bit more. It's possible there are very efficient expansion strategies around this, but there are big size things in the ocean, like the the little seal cavalry dudes and the shamblers that these guys are not going to be able to trample, and then they're going to have major problems. I don't love them. I'll just put that out there. I don't love them. They do have perfect morale. They have bad MR, but otherwise they're pretty solid. I think these guys have oh no, these guys are also bad MR. And then we have the crab hybrid. Crab hybrids I like. They're high protection. They're gold expensive, but not overly expensive. And they have 2 decent attacks. They're aquatic only. So the other thing I should mention is the Atlantean line of troops are amphibious, but these guys are all aquatic. All of the mermen people are aquatic. Shamblers are amphibious. Crab hybrids, aquatic. So they can't get out of the water. I like them, but I'm not in love with them. In fact, I think a lot of times these guys are going to do better for expansion. I mean, these guys have 14 protection and 25 HP, which is a little bit better than 11. But these are going to be significantly more killy per gold than these dudes. But in terms of resources, these guys are 33. I mean, recruitment points, these guys are 33. These guys are 6. So if you are limited on recruitment points, these guys are going to be a lot more efficient than the other dudes. But if you're limited on resources, the other dudes would be more efficient. And then you can make the argument you should expand with like one of the Guardian varieties like these guys. And they're, you can see, also reasonably cheap. You can make these in pretty large quantities. The issue, again, with these guys is often morale. They're also going to tend to get poisoned and die. So that's the other thing. But you can expand with these. These are an option. I don't know. I've tried expansion with them. There's another thing we need to talk about for these guys for expansion. They're faster than most of your other units, like your Atlanteans and your Lobo Guard, which is a lot of what's in your starting army. They're faster than, so a lot of times they're going to run forward and die before the rest of your army gets there, so you have to be careful about positioning them. And because morale is an issue you're worried about, and you start having one commander with 3 squads and they get morale penalties, it gets complicated. So if you space everything out so they all make contact at the same time, they have a morale penalty. It's a little tricky. I'm not sure how to use these guys or if one should. But there's parts about them that are good, and I've done expansion with them and it works, but I'm not in love with them after doing it. And then we have the Illithids. There's 2 flavors. So what are they? They're 50 gold Mind Blasters. What is Mind Blast? It's 100 range, 100 precision, so it always hits, but MR negates. 10 ammunition, means you fire 10 times, and it's 1 armor negating psychic damage, which tends to hit the head, which a lot of times will cause their head to pop. But it also paralyzes them. So in expansion, what that's going to mean is it's going to split up their army, so it usually comes trickling in rather than coming in a wave. So if you have enough Illithids to cause that to happen, you know, if there's like 50 enemy units running at you and you have 3 guys spamming out Mind Blast, you're still going to get hit by a big blob. It's not going to matter. But if there's 50 guys running at you and you have 10 of these guys, it will turn it into a trickle. So anyway, that's a thing. They have another variety which has armor, and they will run out of Mind Blast and charge into combat. So there is an argument to be made for this, but here's what I found. These guys are very good before anti-magic comes out. After anti-magic comes out, these guys are kind of horrible. So you kind of don't want to make them, in my professional opinion. Or not really professional, but you know what I mean. So yeah, you know, I think you're going to want to spend your resources on other stuff. So I would go with these guys if you're going to get them, and only get them early game before anti-magic comes out. That being said, having even a contingent of like 15 of these guys in an army makes it extremely hard to super combatant against. Because not getting through your buff script while you're getting nailed by Mind Blasts is actually pretty hard. It's quite challenging. And then we have the hybrids. The other thing is you're going to get, based on your Dominion strength in your province, you're going to get free spawn. It's either going to be Dreamers, which there's 2 kinds. There's Dreamers and there's Madmen. And they're basically all steaming hot piles of garbage. Some need magic leadership, some don't. And they're basically just chaff. They're complete chaff. In vanilla, people complain that you cause starvation issues, and while they don't cost much upkeep, they cost like 1 gold a year. The fact that they're otherwise worthless means they're a net negative, which I think is funny. When I played low Dominion Strength, I welcomed all of the chaff. We just put them in armies, they acted as siege strength, and we never had so much that it was any hassle to move around. We were just happy for the little bit we got. And but if you have higher Dominion, you can get a lot of it, and you have to figure out ways to manage it. One of the ways people used to manage it was to put it all in one province and let it starve to death. So that was one of the things they tried to change in Dominions Enhanced. Now there's a whole economy set up around suiciding these guys, which I think is hilarious. And that is going to get us into the actual Dominions Enhanced portion of this, which... so one of the things you can do, we'll start off with this, is you have this spell, One with the Void. And what it basically does is... you can basically have dreamers. You remember I said there's dreamers and madmen. Dreamers can enter the if you can only do this at your capital, and they get sacrificed. They die, and in exchange you get 3d6 pearls. So, 10.5 pearls a turn. If there's 15 or more dreamers present. If there's less, you get less. So that's pretty crazy because that is a lot of gems per turn to get from this. So yeah, it's pretty darn good. And then later, at 6, you get this one, which basically allows you to create a non-cap void gate, which you can have a guy enter to do void summonings the same way you would in your capital. But it's going to kill the population and increase unrest. And then at Thaumaturgy 7, you get Prepare Gate to the Beyond, and you can do the same thing where you sacrifice dudes in your capitals now at this other place. So you now have basically, I don't want to call it infinite, but heavily scaling astral production, like phenomenal amounts. And yeah, the other thing is you can, this has to do with like the low Dominion Strength strategy, is you can manipulate your Dominion to have it high in specific provinces with preachers and have it low everywhere else, because you can preach it above your natural Dominion. So if I'm Dom Strength 1, I can still have a province, with a temple in it that I preach up, with a Holy 3 priest in it and a temple that I can preach up to Dom 7, even though I'm Dom Strength 1. And then that could give you enough respawn to feed into some of these things. But organizing your economy and feeding everything in the right place, all of that is a dance. And that needs to be done with reasonable efficiency. So that's part of this. That's probably the biggest part, the most broken part of Late Age Rlyeh in Dominions Enhanced, is basically having enormous amounts of pearls. Absolutely enormous. So that's that. There's another thing, which, while we're on the topic of like kind of broken things, you have this thing, which is a necklace from beyond. You put this on a guy, and I think all they have to do is just sit in the province. They don't have to do anything. And I think only certain types of units can have it. I'll have to check it exactly what it is, but I think your cultists can have it. I don't 100% remember, but yeah, anyway, they can basically, they will turn madmen into void creatures at a pretty nice rate. And the void creatures you get can be pretty good. They could be like greater othernesses, or things that are like size 6 tramplers, or things that should not be, which are these like tentacled monsters that are pretty good. You can get a lot of pretty good stuff from this, and this is pretty cheap to make. So a lot of Late Age Rlyeh and Dominions Enhanced is about turning free spawn into higher quality stuff, like pearls or better units. And this is one of the tools to do that. So back to the spells. There are a lot of things, right? And we're not going to talk about all of them. I'm only going to talk about some of them, the things that I think are terribly important, and I'm going to miss some. Okay, so let's do it. Let me see. So in Conjuration, there's a whole host of summoning things where you basically spend pearls to get void creatures. You can do that, okay? I personally don't like when you have free spawn that can generate these, I don't really love the idea of paying for them as a one-time thing, but it's fine. You do get, this is a vanilla spell that you get, and you summon a Void Spectre, which is 25 gems for an Astral 4 Mage is pretty phenomenal. And this guy's amazing. He is going to basically cause insanity and pop kill in enemy provinces. He will not pop kill or cause insanity in friendly provinces, I don't believe. So this is kind of cool. And he's a huge badass. Like, Astral 4 is super high. I think they made him sacred too, which is nuts. And Dominion's enhanced. So it's an extremely strong creature. And yeah, a lot of times you'll see them casting the other spell, which is Dreams of Rlyeh, which I don't know if we have it somewhere. Yeah, this thing. And this is basically like a Mind Hunt, except it doesn't get penalized if there's an enemy Astral Mage in the province. And it won't target undead. Things that don't sleep, it doesn't target. And instead of just outright killing you, it takes you to the Void, where you have an assassination battle. But it kills all your stats. It cuts your combat stats all down. It cuts your MR in half. I've almost never seen anybody win a Dreams of Rlyeh assassination battle. It's extremely hard to do. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then we have, okay, that's the Void Spectre. Void Incursion, that's another summoning thing. We have a remote assassination spell. Send this guy and he'll snatch you to the Void. This actually seems like it would potentially be pretty good against super combatants. And then Alt 8, you have Into the Void, which will turn your whole army ethereal, because that's a thing. Alt 8's very good for Rlyeh, because you're going to get basically Will of Fates, which is going to give everybody luck, and then Into the Void, which is going to give them all ethereal. Seems pretty good to me. Protection of the Void. And this gives everybody Astral Shield, because that's also a thing. So now imagine an entire army with Astral Shield, Luck, and Cheat Fate. Worth noting, though, this one is MR Negates, and I do not believe... Yeah, Into the Void is not. So not the entire army will have protection. But you could put pin gear on the guy casting it, and if you have this go off before anti-magic, it would work. Ultimately, I mean, Protection of the Void is nice. I don't know. Having it MR negates, it's probably still good. Okay, Protection of the Void. The stars are right. This is a global enchantment they get, which is going to summon this guy. Just having this guy present allows you to recruit the middle-aged variety Star Children that are born assassins. So that's kind of cool. He's also a super beast. He's immortal, and it causes unrest worldwide, and then people are going to get baleful stars cast on their capital. I mean, not on their capital, on all provinces, 10% of the time. So it's pretty scary. And it will piss people off. Okay, we have a few more things. Bestow Void skill, which just makes you have Void Sanity, I believe, and it also gives you Void Summoning skill. We have Power of the Void, which gives you... This is Hell Power, basically, which you can do as an Astral Nation. So for 1 pearl. So, I mean, honestly, with a Claim of Pearls, you can do Power of the Spheres and then Power of the Void. And I think for your Star Spawn, you'll be able to do that all with the gems that are built in, which will give them +3 to all magic paths. So you can turn your guy basically into like a Death 1 would turn into a Death 4. And like if he's a Water 1, Astral 3, Death 1, he would become Water 4, Astral 6, Death 4. But he would be getting tagged by Hars, which, you know, you can do Hell Power Bombs and stuff with Rlyeh too, which is pretty funny. Okay, we have 1 with the Void. We've already talked about that. This is this Thaumaturgy line of stuff. Open Gates. Dimensional Shambler. I don't think we're going to talk about that. Dreams of Rlyeh. We're not going to talk about this. You can summon lobster hybrids. They're kind of cool. Another thing that is worth mentioning, this spell, Terrors of the Void, this is a battlefield-wide. MR negates confusion and people get insanity. This can be exceptionally good, especially on like a high pin caster. Probably better, though, by this time to just enslave people than to cause them to fight amongst themselves. But, you know, you can do it your way. And then, importantly, we have Lord of the Void. And this gets you a bunch of different guys. It gets you these. I'm going to click on them all here. So this basically, it's like Demon Lords, but from the Void. So you get this guy who's an Astral 5, basically utter vast or vastness. You get this guy who is a Demon Sultan. He's Astral 5, Death 5. You get this guy who is a just another Astral 5 guy, but it's an exceptional chassis. And I believe he has teleport too, does he? Oh no, that just... Oh yeah, he does. Which is a really cool tag to have. This guy's a huge beast. And then you get this guy who's an Earth 4 and has regen built in on top of just a whopping 100-something HP. Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. And you have this guy who is these two are basically like pretenders you can get in Dominions Enhanced. This guy's a water astral dude, but he's basically, I think he's like the nuclear chaos dude. He twice spawns into a void larva. Oh, I guess this is a special void larva. Okay, he also has Fate Weaving, which is kind of cool. But why do I... Oh, and you get this guy, who's the Blood Astral dude. Now, what is important about this? Well, one of the ways you can cheese uniques in the game is you transform them into something, and then that makes it where the game thinks they're dead, and you can resummon them. So if you think about it, if we have... What if I told you these were not unique? What if I told you you can change them into a golem? Or I forget what the Astral Transformation one is. Maybe there's not one for Astral. I have to check. This guy can turn into a Lich. We'll go look at him. This one can turn into an octopus. This guy can turn into a golem. This guy... I don't know. We have to see what the Astral one is. But we can basically, we're going to have infinite amount of gems, and I'm probably going to be able to make an infinite amount of those, is what I think. So, okay, the spell is usually Become. Okay, here we go. So, the water ones can become an octopus. We don't have a nature or fire. Yeah, we have Become Golem, Become Lich. The other option is you can twice-born these guys and use the twice-born shape, which was put in. Which is expensive, but it's okay. Yeah, and if you're doing that, you're able to duplicate the chassis. But ultimately, the thing is, like, you look at it and it's like, oh, no, you can't duplicate all of them. But that's the wrong way to think about it, because you only need to be able to duplicate one of them for it to matter. Because how the unique summon spells work is if any of them aren't available, basically, you're going to summon one of these at random, and once you've summoned them all, if you try to summon them again, you would just waste your gems. But if you manage, like, let's say this guy, we turn him into a Lich. So we now have an Astral 4, Death 5 Lich, right? And the total cost is not trivial, right? Because Become Lich is like 30 gems or something, and this is 50 gems to summon, so it's like 80 gems. So you're definitely paying a premium to duplicate them, but you're getting around this to get some really good units. So anyway, you do that, and I wonder what this HP overflow does. Anyway, we'll figure this out later, but Anyway, he's gone now from the pool. So when you cast this again, you will have, it will look through this list. It's going to see only one is missing. So it will give you this guy back immediately. And it'll be a fresh copy. And then you'll just keep making Astral 4 Death 5 dudes until the end of time. Is it completely broken? I don't even know. Because 80 gems is expensive. And you could just be getting liches, which are Death 4. And you can get them for 30 or 40 gems or whatever. But these particular liches will be able to do Soul Drain, which is kind of cool. And then I think one of the Void Lords we get, I think one of the Astral 5s is duplicatable. Yeah, this guy is. So we could have a bunch of Astral 5s running around. Sadly, turning into an octopus, I don't think is the best. It's probably fine. I mean, it's not a great chassis. I think it has low MR. But, you can do a Void Scepter and probably some of the other pin gear. I think you have miscellaneous slots. So it's fine. You could put a lead shield on it and like a crystal shield and a rune smasher. And I'm not even sure the fourth hand slot on the octopus. But anyway, you could kit these dudes out. So that's something you can do. But the other thing that I think bears mention, and this spell may be banned, I know people were talking about it, but it's just a normal thing in DE. A spell called Music of the Spheres. And this allows anything that's a magic being. I don't know why I can't click it, but just trust me. Anything that's a magic being, so you have to have that tag. You cast this and you become an innate caster. I know. So that means you could potentially have all your things you're doing for most of your mages going off on turn 1. And if you have this nation running properly, it does not seem absurd to me that you could be getting 200 or 300 gems a turn once you're a big nation in the late mid game. So there's some crazy shit that can happen. And then on top of that, you're going to have a ton of Void Beasts, and they're all going to be ethereal with luck on them. Oh boy. There's a few other spells that deserve mention. One of them is Empower Magic Being. Oh wait, yeah, this one. It basically is going to give you +4 strength for a lot of dudes. And you can spam this out, it doesn't cost gems. So yeah, it's basically like Strength of Giants for magic beings. It's only Thumb 3. This can even go on like lowly little lowly little Lobo Guard. But it can also go on your Void Beings. So that's one of the things. The other thing, trying to remember, I think it's going to have magic in here. Awaken Magical Being. Yeah, it's basically a 10 gem Gift of Reason, but only for magic things. So we can use this on creatures that we summon from the Void Gates, but we can also use this on, a whole plethora of things, but yeah, this is, I think primarily would be like things that cannot be, or I've talked about them a few times, I'll show it to you. This guy's probably worth 10 gems to turn into a commander. Fear, Blind Fighter, Sacred, Magic Being. He doesn't have very good slots, so you wouldn't be able to put a ton on him, but I mean, he's a beast. He's size 6, 60 HP, 4 life drain attacks. And the guy is a unit. He could definitely thug, especially with regen. I think this guy with like a Berserker amulet, like the Lycanthrope amulet, would be pretty badass. Pretty darn tootin' badass. I'm not sure what the other one would be. But anyway, that's a thing you could do. But honestly, guys, with a huge amount of pearls, you can choose to just wish from other gem types. You can do so much stuff with this nation. I think it's probably, from things I can tell, it seems to be the most heavily scaling nation in DE. So we'll see how it goes. And next episode, Pretender Design. Tune back in. I will see you then.